The wedding of Ethan Ashford had been called the social event of the decade. By noon, St. Helena Cathedral was packed with celebrities, politicians, and reporters. Black cars lined the street. White roses covered the entrance. At the center of it all stood Ethan. 38 years old and worth more than $12 billion, he had built Ashford Global from a rented office and a borrowed laptop. The press admired his discipline, and investors trusted his judgment. But today, he was waiting for Victoria Hale. When the cathedral doors opened, every guest turned. Victoria appeared in an ivory gown and walked down the aisle beneath hundreds of candles. Ethan smiled back. For the first time in years, he felt complete. The ceremony began. The priest spoke about loyalty and building a future together. Ethan held Victoria's hands as cameras clicked. Then the priest looked at him. "Ethan Ashford, do you take Victoria Hale to be your lawful wife?" Ethan opened his mouth. Before he could answer, a loud crash came from the entrance. One cathedral door had swung open. A little girl stood in the doorway. She was about 6. Her yellow dress was torn, her hair tangled, and her bare feet covered in dust. She held an old stuffed rabbit with one missing eye. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the girl started running. She hurried down the center aisle, ignoring the shocked whispers around her. 2 security guards stepped forward. "Stop her," Victoria's mother hissed. One guard reached for the child. The girl pulled away and shouted, "No!" Her voice echoed through the cathedral. Ethan stared at her. Something in her face made his chest tighten with a familiarity he could not explain. She reached the altar and stopped before him. The cathedral fell silent. She looked up at Ethan with large brown eyes. Her lips trembled. Then, barely louder than a whisper, she said, "Daddy." The words seemed to stop time. Victoria slowly released Ethan's hands. A camera clicked, then another. Whispers filled the room. "Did she say Daddy? Is that his child?" Victoria looked at Ethan, pale. "What is this?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" "I've never seen her before." The girl's hope began to disappear. "You are Ethan Ashford, aren't you?" she asked. "Yes." She hugged the rabbit against her chest. "Then you're my daddy." An advisor rushed toward the altar. "We need to remove her before this gets worse." Ethan turned sharply. "No one touches her." Victoria stared at him. "You're stopping our wedding for a child you claim you've never met?" Ethan looked down at the girl's bare feet. Small cuts covered her heels. She breathed as though she had run for miles. He slowly knelt in front of her. Up close, he noticed a silver chain tied around the rabbit's neck. A small oval pendant hung from it, with a blue stone in the center. Ethan's breath caught. He had seen that pendant before. Years ago. A rain-soaked road flashed through his mind. A mountain inn. A woman by a fireplace. Then it vanished. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily." "Lily what?" "Lily Morgan." Ethan's expression changed. "Morgan." The name struck somewhere deep inside him. Victoria noticed. "You know that name?" "No," Ethan replied, but his voice lacked certainty. Lily glanced nervously at the staring guests. "I wasn't supposed to come inside," she whispered. "But the lady outside said the wedding had started." "Who brought you here?" Ethan asked. "No one." "You came alone?" Lily nodded. "How?" "Bus." "Then I walked." "From where?" She named a town nearly 40 miles away. Victoria covered her mouth. Ethan looked toward security. "Close the doors. Find out how she got here. Call the police and child services, but no one speaks to the press." The advisor leaned closer. "Every phone in this room is already recording." Ethan glanced toward the guests. By now, the whole world had probably seen it. The billionaire groom. The barefoot child. One whispered word. "Daddy." Victoria stepped closer, her voice cold. "Tell me right now. Is she yours?" Ethan looked at Lily again. Her eyes were fixed on him with complete faith. He wanted to say no before the impossible thought destroyed everything. But the pendant would not let him. "Lily, who told you I was your father?" The girl smiled faintly. "My mommy." Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. "What is your mother's name?" Lily looked down at the rabbit. Then she answered, "Emma." The cathedral disappeared around him. The flowers. The guests. The cameras. Even Victoria. All Ethan could see was a small mountain in 6 years earlier and a young woman standing beneath the rain, holding that same pendant. Lily stepped closer. My mommy said you'd remember when you saw this. She lifted the rabbit. The pendant swung between them. Ethan stared at it, unable to speak. Then Lily whispered, "She said today was my last chance to find you." The cathedral emptied in stunned silence. Outside, television crews fought for space behind the barricades while headlines spread across every major news site. Billionaire Groom confronted by little girl calling him daddy. Inside a private meeting room, the atmosphere was far colder. Victoria stood by the window with her arms crossed. You have 10 minutes to explain this. I can't explain something I don't understand, Ethan replied. His legal advisor placed a tablet on the table. The story is already everywhere. Your company stock is falling in after-hours trading. Investors want a statement immediately. I don't care about the stock. You should. Ethan barely heard him. His eyes remained on Lily. She sat quietly on a leather sofa, hugging the worn rabbit against her chest. Someone had brought her new shoes, but she refused to wear them. They hurt, she whispered. Ethan walked over. Have you eaten today? She shook her head. When was the last time? I don't remember. His stomach tightened. He ordered food from the cathedral kitchen. When the sandwiches arrived, Lily carefully wrapped half of hers inside a napkin. You don't like it? Ethan asked. She smiled. It's for Mommy. The room became silent again. Every answer she gave sounded painfully sincere. No rehearsed story. No manipulation. Just the simple honesty only a child could have. After eating, she reached into the rabbit's pocket and pulled out a folded photograph. It had faded with age. One corner had been burned. She handed it to Ethan. My mommy said this belongs to you. Ethan unfolded it slowly. The picture showed a small wooden inn surrounded by pine trees. Standing in front of it was a young woman laughing at the camera. Emma. She looked exactly as he remembered. Long dark hair, kind eyes, the same silver pendant around her neck. Behind her stood Ethan himself, holding 2 mugs of coffee. His breath caught. I remember this. Victoria looked over his shoulder. Who is she? Ethan didn't answer. His mind had already traveled 6 years into the past. He had been driving through the mountains after visiting a manufacturing plant. A violent storm had forced him off the road. His car slid into a ditch. The nearest place with lights had been a tiny family-owned inn. Emma had opened the door before he even knocked. You look freezing, she had said. Come inside. The bridge connecting the town to the highway collapsed that same night. For 4 days, Ethan had been stranded there. No phone signal. No internet. No helicopters because of the weather. 4 unexpected days that felt strangely peaceful. Emma never treated him like a billionaire. She teased him when he couldn't chop firewood. She laughed when he burned pancakes. They spent evenings talking beside the fireplace until everyone else had gone to bed. For the first time in years, Ethan forgot about board meetings, acquisitions, and quarterly earnings. He simply became Ethan. On his final morning, he bought the pendant from a traveling craftsman in the village. It's beautiful, Emma had said. It'll remind you I'll be back. I'll hold you to that promise. He kissed her goodbye. Then he drove away. He had fully intended to return the following weekend, but fate had chosen differently. 3 days later, the helicopter carrying Ethan to another business meeting suffered a mechanical failure. The crash left him hospitalized for months. Broken ribs, a shattered shoulder, a serious head injury. His phone had been destroyed. Every contact disappeared. By the time he recovered, nearly 6 months had passed. He drove back to the mountain town. The inn was empty. Windows boarded. The family had moved away. Nobody seemed to know where. Or perhaps nobody wanted to tell a stranger. Eventually, business swallowed his life again. The memory faded. Until today. Ethan? Victoria's voice pulled him back. You know her mother? He nodded slowly. I knew someone named Emma. Knew, she repeated. We met once. Once. He looked at Lily. I thought I'd never see her again. Lily slid off the sofa. My mommy still talks about you. Ethan knelt beside her. Where is your mother now? At home. Why didn't she come herself? Lily looked down. She couldn't. Why not? She's sick. The words hit him harder than he expected. What kind of sick? Lily shrugged. She coughs a lot. His heart began racing. Did your mommy tell you to come here today? Yes. What exactly did she say? Lily repeated the sentence word for word, as though she had memorized it for weeks. She looked into Ethan's eyes and quietly said, She told me, if you ever hear that Ethan Ashford is getting married, go find him before it's too late. Show him the pendant. If he remembers me, he'll remember you. Ethan couldn't breathe. He looked again at the little girl. The same brown eyes. The same quiet smile. The same stubborn chin he had seen in the mirror every morning for years. For the first time, an impossible question entered his mind. What if Emma hadn't sent Lily to find her father? What if she had sent Lily to say goodbye? Ethan canceled the wedding before sunrise. The announcement shook the business world almost as much as the ceremony itself. News anchors debated whether he had hidden a secret family for years. Financial analysts predicted lawsuits, damaged partnerships, and billions lost in market value. Social media was divided. Some called him a liar. Others believed he was the victim of a story no one yet understood. None of it mattered to Ethan. By 6 o'clock the next morning, his private jet was already heading toward the small mountain region where Lily said she lived. She sat quietly beside him, looking out the window. I've never flown before, she whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. Neither had I, until I was older than you. She giggled. For a brief moment, the tension disappeared, but it returned the instant the jet landed. A local taxi drove them through narrow roads surrounded by pine forests until they reached a worn neighborhood at the edge of town. Small wooden houses stood side by side, paint peeled from the walls. Several roofs had been patched with sheets of metal. The driver pointed toward the last house. That's Emma Morgan's place. Ethan stepped out slowly. His heart pounded harder than it had before any billion-dollar negotiation. Lily ran ahead. Mommy. The front door opened. Emma appeared. For several seconds, nobody moved. She looked older than Ethan remembered. Life had carved quiet lines into her face, but her eyes were exactly the same. Warm. Gentle. Unforgettable. The basket she was carrying slipped from her hands, sending groceries across the porch. Ethan. His name barely escaped her lips. Neither of them knew what to say. 6 years of unanswered questions stood between them. Finally, Emma looked at Lily. I told you not to go. Lily lowered her head. I'm sorry. Emma knelt and hugged her tightly before looking back at Ethan. You shouldn't be here. I had to come. No. She stood. You came 6 years too late. Those words hurt more than any accusation. I tried to find you. Emma looked away. So did I. Silence settled over the porch. Ethan noticed her coughing into a handkerchief. When she lowered it, she quickly folded the fabric before anyone could see it. But he had already noticed the faint red stain. His chest tightened. Emma? I'm fine. You don't look fine. She ignored the comment. Lily, go inside and wash your hands. The little girl obeyed, leaving the adults alone. Emma folded her arms. I never told Lily to ruin your wedding. I know. I told her to find you only if she heard you were getting married. Why? She hesitated. Because once you married someone else, she deserved to know who her father was. Ethan stared at her. You knew she was mine. Emma gave a sad smile. I never doubted it. Then why didn't you tell me? You disappeared. My helicopter crashed. I know that now. You didn't know? She slowly shook her head. I searched for months. Every article said Ethan Ashford had survived and returned to work. None of them mentioned rehabilitation. None mentioned memory problems. I wrote letters to your company. I never received them. They were returned unopened. Ethan closed his eyes. Some assistant. Some security protocol. Someone had decided those letters weren't important enough to reach him. And because of that decision, he had lost 6 years with his daughter. Emma walked toward an old cabinet and opened a small wooden box. Inside were dozens of neatly tied envelopes. Every one carried Ethan's name. I stopped writing after the 30-second letter. His hands trembled as he picked one up. None had ever been opened. None had ever reached him. I thought you had chosen your company instead of us. I never even knew. I know. Her voice remained calm. I stopped being angry a long time ago. She looked toward the window where Lily was drawing with colored pencils. I had someone more important to raise. Ethan watched his daughter laughing to herself. His daughter. The word still felt unreal. He walked to the table where Lily had left one of her drawings. 3 stick figures stood beneath a bright yellow sun. 1 little girl. 1 woman. 1 tall man wearing a blue tie. At the top she had written, "My family." Ethan swallowed hard. "You drew me?" Lily nodded proudly. "Mommy said families can be together even if they're far away." His vision blurred. He had missed everything. Her first smile. Her first birthday. Her first day of school. Every scraped knee. Every bedtime story. Every Christmas morning. Moments no amount of money could ever buy back. He knelt beside her. "Lily." She looked up. "Yes. I'm so sorry." She frowned, confused. "For what?" "For not being here." She thought for a moment before answering with complete innocence. "You didn't know where we lived." The simplicity of her forgiveness broke him. Tears rolled down Ethan's face. Lily hugged him tightly. "It's okay," she whispered. "You came now." Emma watched silently from across the room. For the first time in 6 years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe fate hadn't taken Ethan away forever. But before anyone spoke another word, Ethan's phone began ringing. It was his chief legal officer. He answered. The voice on the other end sounded urgent. "Ethan, Victoria just held a national press conference." His stomach dropped. "What did she say?" "She announced that the wedding will still happen." Ethan froze. "That's impossible." "There's more." The lawyer hesitated. "She told the world that you're being manipulated by a woman who invented a child to steal your fortune, and she's demanding an immediate DNA test on live television." The room fell silent. Emma slowly stepped back, not because she feared the truth, but because she knew the battle waiting outside that little house had only just begun. By sunrise the next day, every television network in the country carried the same headline. "Billionaire's secret child? DNA test to reveal the truth." Reporters surrounded Emma's house. Helicopters circled overhead. Neighbors who had barely spoken to her in years suddenly stood outside taking pictures. Lily peeked through the curtains. "Why are all those people here?" Emma gently closed them. "They'll leave soon." But everyone in the room knew that wasn't true. Ethan's legal team arrived within the hour. The DNA samples were collected privately under court supervision to prevent any accusations of fraud. The waiting period would take 48 hours. 48 hours that felt longer than the previous 6 years. Meanwhile, Victoria continued appearing on television. She claimed she had been deceived. She implied Emma had carefully planned everything. She suggested Lily had been coached to manipulate Ethan. Public opinion became even more divided. Thousands defended Emma. Thousands believed Victoria. Ethan refused every interview. Instead, he stayed exactly where he wanted to be, at Emma's small house. For the first time in his adult life, he experienced ordinary mornings. He helped Lily make pancakes. He walked her to the tiny neighborhood park. He listened as she proudly showed him every drawing she had ever made. One afternoon, she opened an old cardboard box. "I want to show you something." Inside were dozens of handmade Father's Day cards. Every single one had his name written on it. None had ever been given to him. One card read, "Maybe next year you'll come." Another simply said, "I hope you know I'm waiting." Ethan couldn't hold back the tears. "Did you make all of these?" Lily nodded. "Mommy said maybe someday we'd find you." Emma quietly looked away, giving him space. That night, Ethan walked onto the porch. Emma joined him with 2 cups of tea. For several minutes, neither spoke. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "I don't expect forgiveness." Emma smiled sadly. "I already forgave you years ago." "You did." "I had to." "Why?" "Because hate would have raised Lily instead of love." He looked down. I don't deserve either. No, Emma replied honestly. You don't. He accepted the answer. But she reached for his hand. You can still earn them. Those words meant more than forgiveness. They meant there was still hope. 2 days later, the results arrived. The courtroom was packed. Television cameras waited outside. Neither Ethan nor Emma smiled as the sealed envelope was opened. The judge adjusted his glasses before reading the report. The probability of paternity. Every heartbeat seemed to stop. Is 99.9999%. The room erupted. Reporters rushed for the exits. Outside, cameras flashed endlessly. Ethan didn't even notice them. He looked only at Lily. She stared back, confused by everyone's reaction. So, she asked softly, does this mean I can call you Daddy now? Ethan dropped to one knee. His voice trembled. You could have called me Daddy from the very beginning. She threw herself into his arms. For several seconds, neither of them let go. Even members of the press lowered their cameras. Some stories didn't need commentary. Weeks later, Ethan held his first press conference. Millions watched live, expecting him to attack Victoria or defend himself. Instead, he stepped behind the podium and spoke calmly. I spent years believing success meant building the biggest company I could imagine. He paused. I was wrong. The room fell silent. I missed 6 years of my daughter's life because of circumstances neither of us created. I cannot recover those years. No amount of wealth can purchase a child's first words, first birthday, or first hug. He looked directly into the cameras. But I can decide what happens next. That afternoon, he announced something no investor expected. He was stepping down as CEO. The board gasped. Financial analysts called it the most shocking resignation in corporate history. Ethan simply smiled. He had already found something worth infinitely more than another $1 billion. Months passed. He divided his time between helping lead the company as chairman and being present for Lily every single day. He attended every school performance, every parent meeting, every birthday, every small moment he had once believed could wait. He quietly funded a new elementary school in Emma's town, not with his name on the building, but with her late father's name, the man who had once welcomed a stranded stranger into his family without asking for anything in return. Emma watched the changes carefully. She never rushed back into a relationship. Trust wasn't rebuilt with promises. It was rebuilt with ordinary days, with consistency, with showing up. One evening, Lily climbed onto the couch between them. I have a question. Emma laughed. Another one? Lily nodded seriously. If you already love each other. She looked from one to the other. Why don't you get married? Neither adult answered. Instead, they looked at each other and laughed for the first time in years. A year later, in the very same mountain town where they had first met, Ethan and Emma stood beneath a large oak tree surrounded by fewer than 50 guests. No television crews. No politicians. No celebrities. Only family and close friends. Lily walked barefoot across the grass, scattering wildflowers instead of rose petals. She stopped between them before the ceremony began. Looking up at Ethan, she smiled the same hopeful smile that had once stopped a wedding. Only this time there was no uncertainty, no fear, no secret left to reveal. She wrapped her tiny hand around his finger and whispered, I told Mommy you'd remember. Ethan kissed her forehead. I'll never forget again. As the ceremony ended, Lily proudly took both of their hands. The little family walked away together while the afternoon sun disappeared behind the mountains. Sometimes the greatest fortune a person can ever receive isn't measured in money. Sometimes it's simply being given a second chance to come home.